Hey guys, we have Libby here today, and we're going to be doing Libby's makeup again. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello. We're going to be doing another like graphic, fun kind of eye look where we discuss topics ranging from like sexuality, Libby's studies, gender, mental health, and like a plethora of many other things. So stay tuned for the finished look. Started with popping Libby's hair back, just so you know I don't get any makeup in their beautiful hair. And then I'm also going to get started with just a little bit of skin prep as well, just to make sure that the foundation is going to be really nice. From what you do, what you study, and all that jazz.
Well, my name's Libby. I study a double degree at UWA. I do psychology and gender studies, which is really good. It links in really well together because eventually I want to look at women and non-men specifically.
So like gender studies, but every other gender other than the cis male gender.
Yeah, because that's where previously all of the research has been done. It's just on cis, white, straight men, and you know, specifically with neurodivergency as well. Like there's so much that's still unknown about neurodivergency in people other than men.
Well, yeah, it was like always like up for discussion because a lot of the time their symptoms are misunderstood for something else. So a lot of the time it's like they're just like you got to lose weight, or you know you might just be like on your period, or it's hormonal rather than like an actual mental health issue.
Chuck you on the pill, it'll be fine.
Chuck you on the pill, and there's like so many different types of pills. It's absolutely insane.
Especially with like neurodivergency as well. Like women generally and non-men in general are better at masking because that's what you know we've been taught to do from day dot. So things get missed because really good at pretending.
Really good at pretending.
Really good at pretending.
Perfect. You said so like women in neurodivergency and masking stuff. You actually said like we, as in like discussing yourself. Are you someone who lives with like neurodivergency or mental illness?
Yes.
Not the mental illness. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that.
Mental illness. Yes, it's been a journey. I have a diagnosis of ADHD, but I also have a previous diagnosis of BPD, bipolar, and you know the classic anxiety and depression. And autism is something that has also been discussed with multiple health professionals. But the state of the economy
it's
means
very hard
that I'm
to
not
get
getting the official diagnosis, and my psych says that it would be better if I don't, because there's other obstacles and stuff to having that on your record, unfortunately.
Is there? What kind of like obstacles would you face if you had like an autism diagnosis on your record?
It's more kind of the fact of brought in. So there's this debate about driving, and professionals are now saying that autistic people might have to retake their driving test. They have it already just because they're autistic.
That makes no sense.
It's because like the group that would follow the rules the best and be most alert on the roads, I would say, would be autistic people. We love our rules.
Love our that's such a mood. You've got to follow it, otherwise like my brain will explode. And my psych also says that there's not much extra support that I could get from having the official diagnosis because it's mainly for NDIS, and she said I don't need a support worker, which I don't. So that's where we're at. Absolutely. And if I remember correctly, getting a diagnosis that complex after the age of 18, not only is it more difficult to do so, but it costs, like you were saying, it costs a lot more money than if you were to be under the age of 18. It's similar with an diagnosis. If you do it when you're under the age of 18, a lot of your medication will be subsidized, but if you get diagnosed after the age of 18, it is full time on you to be using the substances just in case. Is that right?
Yes. So I got my ADHD diagnosis officially when I was 19. It was just an issue with getting a psychiatrist, unfortunately. But it's been discussed since I was like 13.
Well, like you were saying, it's a lot harder to be diagnosed as a female at birth with like autism, ADHD, because a lot of the symptoms are like either disregarded, not acknowledged properly, or
hormones and stuff like that. But you know, like medical health professionals specifically in mental health love to see they don't love to see, but they see a teenage girl going through it big time. And you know, I feel like a lot of the time BPD is given to, like, a label is given to women.
It's a very, very, like, I've noticed over the years that BPD, it seems to be almost used as like a very loose term.
Yeah.
For, they're like, something's wrong, but we don't really know what the problem is.
Like, the amount of people that I know who had a previous diagnosis of BPD, who then get a diagnosis of ADHD and autism, or one or the other, insane, you know?
No, I was actually one of the people, I got diagnosed with BPD as well. Just turns out that I have, like, what you would call complex post-traumatic stress disorder and ADHD. And like, similar to you, they've discussed autism, but they said there's not really any point in focusing on that diagnosis if I've already got these plethora of other diagnoses.
Exactly.
Don't want to collect them all, not
Gotta
to
catch 'em all.
you know, as someone with like a different amount, like, of mental illnesses, or like going through life like that.
You know, like, do you ever wish it away? Like, no, because it is me. And I don't really like calling myself like a mentally ill person, because I think it's just, I face challenges just like other people do. It's just, you know, different, because as you said with PTSD, I have that as well, and that relates to like a lot of different things.
Absolutely. I've definitely noticed with a lot of people with different, like with PTSD or different types of PTSD, it is often like the kind of diagnosis, because for some reason it's not really considered a proper diagnosis in the like DSM-5, I think it's called. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder isn't actually a proper mental health diagnosis as of yet, but post-traumatic stress disorder is. Not really sure what the difference is between the two and why is considered, why one's considered a proper diagnosis and the other one isn't. But
and the complex one
isn't. No, just
know?
look up for me. It's definitely very interesting, because I'm like, why not? What is it that's not a diagnosis? Like, why isn't that one as serious as regular PTSD? Because for those of you who don't know, complex post-traumatic stress disorder is kind of what it sounds like. So it's essentially, you've had a string or a large amount of traumatic events happen to you over a certain period of time, which has left your brain, like, different pathways and chemicals altered. And they, like we were saying before, the symptoms can be similar to other things like BPD, autism, ADHD, just like basically
a brain smoothie.
And a lot of the time I've noticed a lot of mental health professionals can find it really difficult to navigate or like medicate or do anything, because obviously it's like it is like a learnt, as what you would call a learnt behavior, but then there's also that like chemical imbalance sort of, because your brain is completely like you said, blended up in a smoothie.
Yes. CPTSD, I've had that discussed with me over the years, but only recently has PTSD been discussed with me. My psych did a little test. Apparently I have it, which would make sense, but it
does come, you know, with the PTSD as well. Yeah. And you were telling me before you've just started doing EMDR myself. I think you said you just did your first session recently. How did you find that, if you're comfortable talking about it, obviously?
It was really interesting, because previously forms of therapy that I've done, kind of the extent of it is CBT and DBT, which are talk-based therapies. But EMDR uses, like, you know, it's to deal with embodied trauma, which trauma that your body holds, rather than embodied trauma cannot be helped through talk therapy, because you can't talk to the body, but you can, just not with words.
No, for those of you, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So they do with EMDR, well, what they did with me, I'm not sure it's with you, because there are a multitude of different methods that you can do for EMDR. But essentially, it's going to sound like a bit hocus pocusy, but they sit you down and you have to reimagine these events that have happened to you while they kind of like wave their finger in a like beat motion at you, and then different levels of how you're feeling, the events that happened and stuff like that. Is that similar to what they've been doing with you?
I did something a little bit different, similar sort of base to it, but my psych had like this device contraption thing, and she told me to hold these
was
two
it
things.
the buzzer ones?
Yeah, with the buzzers. And there was like, I was holding a buzzer in each hand, and then I had headphones on as well, and there was like a beeping sound. It was like beep, beep, beep. And the intensity of the sound and also the frequency of the sound would change. I'm not sure why it changed. I'm sure I will find out. But yeah, and you just kind of talk through the event and talk about it as if you're back in it. Which at the time can be quite confronting.
It can be very distressing. I definitely found it quite distressing at the time while I was doing it.
Yeah. Like, I'm not someone who likes to cry in front of other people, but I did cry in front of my psych, too.
What was that feeling like? Was that like, were you like kind of like caught off guard?
Yeah, caught off guard because although like, you know, I'm studying psychology, I always kind of approach things with a little bit of skepticism, things out for myself a little bit, but I was like, yep, I'll try this. I've heard good things about it. There's research behind it. You know, my psych's saying it's a good idea. I'll see how it goes. And to start off with, it was really good. You know, just talking through it, talking logically. Something just kind of switched a little bit, and you know, I really felt things, which is the point, I think. But you know, in the moment, it doesn't feel great.
No, it definitely doesn't feel great. And then while my psych was telling me, she was like, you got to make sure you give yourself like recovery time, because obviously you're putting yourself again through this traumatic event, exhausted and quite tired. So I definitely had to give myself like recovery time, because it was quite distressing during that time period. And for those of you who don't, because like similar to Libby, I approach things with a very practical sense of view. So my therapist took the historical explanation for my therapy kind of approach, and she told me, so this lady was at a park essentially, and she was like, you know, reminiscing on these situations that had happened to her, and she was just sitting on a park bench, and while she was sitting on this park bench, there were birds flying like this in front of her, and she was like watching these birds do it in this kind of like continual motion while thinking about these, and then she noticed as time went on that these thoughts, they weren't as distressing when she was thinking about them, and it was kind of like reprocessing and desensitizing them for her. And then she took this and she kind of like cultivated this like therapy strategy to then be able to come up with this therapy type, which I found really fascinating, that she was just at a park and she was like, I'm going to invent a new type of therapy.
Honestly, it's like
it's quite slay. Alright, so we've been discussing, well actually what I'm starting with now, so I'm starting with Libby's eye look. This one I've done before, but I've not done it on someone else, so it's going to be a bit of a trial and error, as it usually is when I do a more graphic kind of eye look. But while we're doing that, we can talk a little bit more about therapy if you want. So obviously you said, you know, you're living with, you know, your complex trauma and then the possibility of, you know, an autism diagnosis. Do you like have any other outlying factors that people consider to impact your mental health?
Yes. So obviously there's the trauma, and there's also like outside factors. I'm queer. I don't look it, but that's part of the problem.
Well, we were just discussing that before as well. Like, what does it mean to actually look queer? You know what I mean? Like, what is the basis? And usually the basis is just lying within the patriarchy. And like, I was actually having this conversation with my housemate because we went and saw Pink, and I was like, why is it Australian women love Pink so much? You know, like, it is such a popular like joke, you know, for the Australian mum and her like bogan accent to love Pink. And I was actually thinking about it, and I was like, it's because Pink's identity like sits within the concept of like embracing masculinity as a woman, and then within Australia we obviously pride ourselves in like masculine identities a lot, and I would argue that's probably why Pink is so popular, because you know, masculinity is so prominent in Australia, and Australian women can identify with that because masculinity is on such a high pedestal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Because at the end of the day, doesn't matter who's presenting masculinity. You know, masculinity is still what's valued most in a lot of different areas. So a lot of the time, even like a feminine woman doing masculine things is seen as better because of the underlying masculinity to the action.
Absolutely. Sorry, I just had to process that one. I was like,
yeah, I don't know if that made sense.
No, it does make sense. So you were saying that you're like quotation marks because there's no such thing, but normal presenting or like a straight presenting queer person. What is your sexuality, if you mind me asking?
I say bi most of the time because that is
sort
a
of
term
digestible.
that like a lot of people understand. Pan probably makes the most sense, but for the most part, queer just you know, just explains it. I feel like most of the time because it's just men, women, not men, not women.
Yeah, and sexuality basically means your attraction isn't based off gender. Essentially, you have the ability to be attracted to anyone.
It's like the person over the gender.
Yeah, the person over the gender. It's actually very fascinating because when you think about it, I think a lot more people might be somewhat pansexual than they may realize. Do you know what I mean? Because like when you have a conversation with people, they'll be like, yeah, I date anyone, especially a lot of bi people. Like they would be okay with dating anyone regardless, and it's like, well, that's a different sublet of sexuality rather than bisexuality, which is bisexuality is by definition attracted to two genders, therefore the bi and then the sexuality. And pansexuality means all of the above, all below.
You know, I'm, you know, dated men and women, you know, but for me the feeling isn't different or anything like that depending on who it is.
That is, you know? I actually have heard a lot of people talk about that the dating experience, like they feel different sometimes with women than they do with men, which I find very interesting. Definitely have a lot of like AFAB friends who have said that they feel more fulfilled dating women than they do dating men, which I find very interesting. Do you know why some people may feel like that?
I feel like a lot of the time women are generally more in tune with their emotions. You know, a lot of the time, you know, obviously a generalization, but women can be a little bit more empathetic and also kind of understand unspoken sort of things. So, for example, my experience dating men versus women, with women, I feel like there is that level of, you know, yeah, you might have done something to piss me off, but I understand the reasoning behind it. Whereas with men, it felt, for me anyways, again, generalization, you know, a lot of the time it was just thinking about how they felt about the situation and what they wanted to do, rather than seeing the full picture and seeing reasons for things, you know? And, you know, women can be a little bit more nurturing as well. I feel like some people would definitely get a little bit more out of that rather than, you know, with men, like the whole dominance sort of thing.
But no, I definitely get what you mean. When I've been involved with women, there's definitely like, for whatever reason, a lot of the time men can lack emotion or the ability to emotionally open up with someone.
Like the complexity of emotion.
Yeah, whereas when I've been involved with women, usually that's a lot easier to, you know, get into with someone, which I found more rewarding. But it's such an interesting, almost like, it's also quite difficult being like a queer person when it comes to dating, because a lot of the time, like I know it for like queer men or people who partake in that kind of scene, it's very like sexualized. What's it like in the, you know, for dating women? Is it like a very sexualized community? Or
a lot of what I know about, you know, dating women as a community isn't very much, because I have dated one woman. It was the first woman that I dated, and we're still involved. We're still together. So I only have experience of one woman, and other, very close best friends, shall we say, throughout high school.
And what was your experience dating men? Because obviously you're like you said, bisexual, pansexual. Did you find that there was a lot of sexualization or fetishization with your sexuality while you were dating men?
Not as much, because I, generally speaking, the men that I was involved with were pretty open with, sexuality and its different forms. The two men that I dated long term, they were both quite open, they knew about it, but they didn't make it a weird thing.
Okay. Well,
the only thing I would say is the whole kind of the straight girly notion of oh, kiss your best friend, make out with your friends at the club or whatever, and that's almost encouraged by men sometimes, men in relationships encouraging their girlfriend to do that.
Almost cucking themselves, essentially.
Yeah, and it's you would never do that with a man.
Maybe we should normalize that. Start kissing your best friends, guys.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with
Kiss
it.
Kiss your friends.
Show them love.
Women on women, it's seen as not a valid sort of relationship in that way, and therefore not cheating if you're in a relationship, but it is 100% cheating.
If your relationship has those monogamous rules, of course.
Exactly. Obviously. Yeah. Only in monogamy, but if you've agreed on this relationship as it's only us two, but then someone turns around and says, oh, but you can kiss your friends, even though that would be against the rules that were previously established just because of the gender of the person who was being kissed. I don't think that's okay, personally. Dating a woman, obviously that's not okay. Monogamy, obviously. If you kiss someone else, and that's cheating, and that's the end of it,
Absolutely, I agree. There's definitely that discourse around lesbian relationships. It's often held in jokes of them, since they are so emotional, usually a lot more emotional than a straight relationship. It's the joke going around of oh, we've been dating 2 weeks and we've moved in together and we have a dog now.
Yeah.
Have you yourself experienced that, or noticed your other queer friends having situations like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, it happened a bit different to how most things happen, but I'm kind of currently going through that a little bit. I have been dating my partner for almost 2 years now. There's been a few issues because I've been experiencing a bit of comp het, because her being the first woman that I've dated, and previously only men, as someone who is attracted to multiple genders, sometimes you can justify it in your head and say, well, it would be easier if I just dated someone as in in a straight relationship, because you don't get this outside opinion from society, preconceived judgment and stuff like that. Comp het.
What does comp het mean?
Compulsory heterosexuality. I know that a lot of women specifically feel this. It's a lot of women are expected to perform this role in het relationships, and as being het is the standard of society, it's the norm, so to speak. It's a lot easier to kind of convince yourself, oh, but yes, no, men only, it's a lot easier. It's just out of convenience because of what other people might think, not what you yourself are feeling. But yeah, in my relationship, I would convince myself, no, this isn't right for me. And we had a bit of a break, and now we're back together, working things out. But I have been at her house every day for the last 3 weeks. I guess you could say I've basically moved into a house.
Does she live alone, or does she live with a family?
No, she lives with housemates.
Oh, housemates. Okay,
yes.
So that's good then.
Yeah.
It's not You've invaded the family home.
No, I have invaded her housemate's home, a little bit, but her best friend owns the house. Shout out Chloe. We love you, Chloe.
How do you own a house in this economy, girl? Oh my goodness.
Because she's just out there girl bossing so hard. Yeah, she owns the house. She also lives in the house. But I really like Izzy's housemates. So.
Well, that's good. As long as you can get along. Like, that's like such a... I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't need to get along with my partner's friends to be in a relationship. But I feel like it's the exact opposite of that. Like, you're coming into their life and you should, you know, at least be open to the possibility of like making new friends or getting comfortable with their friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, you know, yes, you're dating that person, but that person cares about other people. And, you know, the effort that you put into also caring about those people is gonna, you know, strengthen the relationship and just, you know, foster feelings of love and care, I guess.
That's a good point. But yeah, so you said Izzy, that's
Izzy,
right? You and Izzy are doing good now after you've like had a little break. Do you have like, I guess like, does your therapy that you partake in, like, does that help?
Yes, it does. You know, besides, you know, actual therapeutic approaches and stuff, it's good to just kind of talk to someone who is separate from the situation, you know, an unbiased professional opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's good to just kind of talk about things, process through them. Recently got a new psych as well, and she specializes in ADHD, autism, trauma, and queerness. So it's been really good to talk to her about these things because we're on the same page a lot of the time, which is really nice.
Well, that's really good. I feel like a lot of people, it is so important to find a therapist that you can relate to and just feel like you're chatting with, you know, and then like while you're chatting with them, you also know in the back of your mind that they're also helping you at the same time because that's their job. Yeah,
like I go into my sessions and I feel like I'm having a little catch up with my bestie. My, you know, bestie who's going to give me proper advice, you know?
Proper advice, like the $200 bill afterwards,
yes,
but we don't worry about
we don't think about that.
So we were talking about like, you know, what it's like living with the TISM, as it's popularly I can't say the word. That's fine. Popularized. The TISM. Like, what kind of like struggles do you have like day to day with that kind of stuff? Like, do you find that you're someone who masks a lot?
Yes, I have been masking my whole life. High masking as well.
What is high masking? Do you want to explain that?
So, to, you know, majority of people, no one's, like, a lot of the time people aren't going to catch that I have the TISM. And I'm classed as what's, like, you know, high functioning, better referred to as low supports needs. So, you know, I can do what I need to do to get by in life and, you know, still be as successful and not, you know, present outward symptoms a lot. But, you know, I've been masking my whole life, so it's hard to tell sometimes, like, what's the mask, what's not the mask. But I feel like, you know, sometimes when I talk about this, you know, people get funny about it, but I feel like I get away with having the TISM a lot because I'm pretty.
What do you mean by that?
I'm conventionally attractive. So, you know, people like the way I look. So, you know, the weird TISM-y things that I do are often seen as like quirky, like manic pixie dream girl sort of vibes, rather than this person has autism. So I feel like I get away with things a little bit more. And also, there's no such thing as someone looking autistic, but people tend to believe that
there is a look to it.
There is a look to it, and that it's not me.
What other kind of stuff do you live with? Like, do you find masking like exhausting?
Yes. So, a lot of the time, you know, if I've gone a whole day of, you know, either work, social commitments, I'll get home and I will be catatonic, laying down, you know, just chilling, not really chilling, just, you know, decompressing from the day, because although, you know, maybe I wasn't doing anything physically strenuous, in my head, I would have just been thinking about, you know, what do I say? What do I do here? Sorry.
No, because, yeah, it is like masking would be considered typically very exhausting because like you said, you have to in the moment be like, what is the right thing to say? And what is the socially acceptable thing to do?
And there's rules about like what the right thing is to do and what the wrong thing is to do. And a lot of the time it feels like everyone else was given this imaginary rule book and I wasn't. So I just have to figure it out a lot of the time based on people's reactions to what I say and do. So it's a bit of trial and error over many, many years. But I don't know why there's all these secret rules to things that, to me anyways, feel like it's not that deep, you know?
No,
like,
absolutely.
Specifically when, you know, for example, someone asks, how are you? There's an expectation that you also ask them how they are, which, you know, is good, but then at the same time, people don't actually want to hear exactly how you are. Like the expected response is just like, good, how are you? You know? And it becomes almost like a script.
A big one I have is like social customs. I don't understand them. Like I've gotten in trouble before for like wearing a hat indoors. And
why is that a rule?
Like, I don't understand.
You know?
And they're like, it's rude, and like I can't fathom why it would be rude to, you know, wear a hat indoors. Or like I have the issue where someone will ask, how are you? And I'll be honest, instead of saying I'm good, I'll be like, oh, I'm not doing great. And then they'll
be like, oh,
they'll look at you and they'll be like, look at you like weird, even though you've answered their question.
And it's like, you literally asked me and I told you, and somehow that's wrong. But yeah, it's hard. And also like eye contact with me, it's like nothing or too much.
No, that's very much me. If I like you, I'll make eye contact, whereas or it's actually, mine's very split by gender. I'm very comfortable making eye contact with women, but men, I can't make eye contact with them. It makes me really deeply uncomfortable, and then they get upset because I'm not making eye contact with them, and I'm like, I promise this in person, I just physically cannot do this.
I will either stare into your soul or not even look at you at all, and you know, they're both perceived as rude somehow. And also, I didn't learn until recently that eye contact isn't staring directly into someone's eyes.
I know.
Why?
I thought it was when you look at. So when I make eye contact, I'm like
staring at
their pupils. I didn't realize it's just their general face direction.
Yeah.
That was such a gag to me when I learned that. I was like, my life was changed. I was like, what the hell? Who was going to tell me that, guys?
Yeah. Another thing is just like facial expressions in general. You know, I feel like a lot of the time I am quite expressive with my face.
But that would probably be what like a part of your masking as well.
But again, it's like all or nothing. You know, I will have all of the facial expressions or nothing at all.
No, I get that a lot. A lot of the time, I get in trouble, or I have a lot of feedback about my tone of voice. A lot of the time, being too flat or not enough emotion in it. Which, like, I don't understand because I just talk. You know what I mean? At my previous job, I used to work in a call center. And when you work in a call center, obviously that's all voice. And I would have a lot of difficulty, and I would communicate that difficulty, but I would have a lot of difficulty with, you know, changing my tone of voice because it is exhausting, you know, because it's the type of masking. You know, talking like this all the time, being really, I can't do that.
Customer service voice?
I find it quite difficult. I'm quite okay with like physical expressions, like facial and hands and stuff. I think I'm just a very emotive person. But when it comes to voice, I always get told I have a very flat voice, which, you know, I used to find it really upsetting because I was like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. This is really weird. I don't know if it's linked to my mental illness or maybe it's just because I'm neurotic, but I cannot stand the color blue. Like, I can't stand it. I refuse to have anything, and if I own anything with the color blue, I get upset.
Are you not wearing blue?
This is Halsey, so that's different. My love for Halsey overrides my hatred for blue, but I rarely do blue makeup looks because it just upsets me.
That's fair.
So much for whatever reason.
Is it because blue's gendered?
That's a good point. Huh. That might actually be why.
Blue is a very gendered colour, so is pink. That's why a lot of, you know, women will, you know, be like, I hate pink. It's like, why do you hate pink? Because you've been told that that's what women like, and you've also been told that women are not good.
That is a really,
okay.
really good
Interesting.
point. Very, yeah, intersex. That's actually a very good point. I'd never thought about it before. That, you know, the reason I dislike blue so avidly is because, close to me, it is a gendered colour.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't think I'm ever going to be the same after that one.
I love red. Red's my favourite.
Red's one of my favourites. Close. I find one of my favourite colours, and it's like one of the most annoying colours ever to be made, is orange.
Oh, I hate orange.
I love orange.
Oh, see, I don't hate orange. It's just I work at BWS as well, and a lot of the time we have to wear orange. Well, we don't have to wear orange, but our uniform is orange. A lot of it. So wearing orange has been, you know, clouded for me, unfortunately. No,
my favourite colour was red. It used to be red, but my ex-boyfriend hated the colour red so much that he made me get rid of anything that I owned that was red.
Gross.
So then, but after we separated, I've now come back into my love for the colour, which has been really fun. Oh, perfect.
If I ever have to choose a colour for something, it's red. My car's red. My fancy armchair is red.
So you were someone who is a survivor, is that what they call it? Someone who's survived cancer. I don't really know what the proper terminology is, if you want to correct me.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, survivor. So I did have cancer.
What type of cancer was it?
It was called a secretory analog carcinoma, but it was in my throat, caught very early on. But weird cancer, because not many people have had it. I think it's only like, you know, under 10 people ever have had this type of cancer. And also it is very aggressive. So it grows very quickly. But my dentist, my lovely dentist, caught it very early on and told me that I needed to get it checked. And I did, and it was cancer. Even though every doctor was telling me it's nothing, you know, we'll check it anyways, but it's probably nothing.
Was it like in your throat?
Yeah, oh, okay. So it was in my throat. It's, you know, it was at the back of my mouth. So when I had it, you could see it, but only just, it was like a little small growth basically. And I had 3 different surgeries to get it out, and luckily I didn't have to have any other treatment because it was caught so early. Initially I had it cut out while awake, which was not fun. At the time my mom told me that she would buy me the largest size of the perfume that I wanted instead of just the 50 ml. Yeah. So I was like, okay, guess I'll get it.
Guess I'll get my cancer removed then.
Yeah, but at this point we didn't know it was cancer because that was for the testing of it. They just cut the main section of it out to test it, biopsy.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had another little one of that after they found out that it was cancer. And then I had a proper surgery where I was asleep, where they cut out like a large section inside of my throat. So no visible scarring, but I had 8 stitches down my throat.
Were they dissolvable or did they have to get removed?
They were dissolvable, but apparently too dissolvable.
Oh, did they dissolve too quickly?
They dissolved the day of, because I ended up reacting to either the painkiller or the anesthetic that they gave me, and I got very sick. You know, vomiting, passing out sort of thing, and TMI, but like vomiting with 8 stitches down your throat is, you know, something I never want to go through again, basically.
No, that does not sound fun at all.
Back to hospital that day, unfortunately. After that, I was all good, and how long has it been? 6 years.
6 years?
I believe.
How long, like, were you, like, obviously you would have been in remission of some type. How long, or are you still currently in remission, or?
I've only just been classed as being in remission, which is nice, because the anniversary of my surgery is the 14th of February, which has just passed.
Oh, yeah.
So my doctor told me, look, you don't have to come back for your checkups anymore, you can just come back if you're concerned. And that was really good, because, you know, it's just nice to know that it's not there anymore, and I don't have to worry about it too much.
Was there like a likelihood of it coming back that they gave you? Like,
yeah, it wasn't so much it coming back, it was just the possibility that it had already spread, because it was in my throat, but it was kind of
it's
on
like
a salivary
in
gland.
This area, it's like close to the brain.
Real close to the lymph system.
Yeah.
A apparently really, really close. To the point where my dad almost got me to have like a full body PET scan just to make sure. Didn't do that, but I'm all good anyways. So
that's really good.
Yeah. And you know, I just thank my dentist and, you know, the universe.
The dentist. Well, like, we were talking about how, like, women aren't really taken very seriously in, like, mental health. Do you believe that the reason you weren't taken seriously by your doctors when you were coming to them about throat was because, you know, you're a woman?
Yes. And also my age at the time, I was, you know, I would have been, you know, 13, 14. So, yes, definitely, I feel like being a woman, a girl, contributed to that. And not only with cancer, but with, you know, other issues as well. I feel like a lot of the time it is just put down to hormones or, you know, hysteria, which is an outdated term, but, you know, often, you know, the ideology behind it is still held up by medical professionals, specifically male ones.
Male ones, but you're like, do you have like a better GP now?
Yes, I love, I've had the same GP, but it was more specialists that I was dealing with at the time for the cancer. But my GP is amazing. She's been my doctor my whole life. She was my mom's doctor. But she's so good. She will not stop until, you know, the cause of something is found. And I trust her, which is good. It's always hard to get an appointment with her because I'm obviously not the only person who thinks that.
But that's good that you did manage to find someone that did take you a little bit more seriously, because like that's such a prominent issue in medicine for women not to be taken seriously, queer people not to be taken seriously, or just any general issue that's not something that can be medicated right there. Right then to be taken seriously. Do you know what I mean?
Like, you know, I also have, you know, reproductive system issues, but I don't know what they are because, you know, the only treatment that I've been offered is be on the pill, which I have been for, you know, the entire time I've been, you know, having periods basically. And I know that there's something really not right, but also there's not really many other like avenues I can go down to kind of explore that anymore, really.
Do you worry that it could be like another type of cancer, or has that already been covered with your doctor?
It's already been covered.
Okay, that's good.
So we know it's not cancer, and also these issues have been happening basically my entire life, well, since puberty. So it's a me thing rather than an outside thing that has appeared.
Okay, that's really good then.
But yeah, still not great, but there's also, you know, not a lot of research necessarily beyond the pill for reproductive issues, I feel like, for women. Like Izzy, for example, my partner, she struggles. She has endo and PCOS, and, you know, struggled a lot. And even the fact with endo that you can't be diagnosed with it unless you have a surgery for it.
I didn't know that. That's not
yeah. You can't get the diagnosis unless you have a surgery to check, you know?
And then you have to go through that full invasive.
Yeah, and it was horrible. She this was before I knew her, but she talks about her recovery. You know, she couldn't walk. She had like 4 different incisions on her stomach when she was told there would only be 1, and she still has scarring and stuff like that. But you know, it was for weeks. You know, she was unable to do anything really. There's not really much of a treatment for endo except removal either.
Of like removal
of lining that has thickened. So so you know, it can be anywhere. Like there's cases of endo being on the brain. You know, like it can latch on to basically any organ and cause a lot of issues. Like when I first met Izzy, she was having endo flares very regularly, so it was happening once a month, sometimes twice a month. So, you know, every few weeks, to the point where she would be unable to move and needed to be hospitalized, you know, and that was just her reality as well.
Yeah, just something she had to live with.
Yeah.
I'm just going to line the lip. So we've done the base, we've done the eyes, and I think Libby likes it so far,
Yes,
but we'll see.
I do.
Alright, head up for me and just like hold your mouth open lightly. But we've covered a lot of pretty heavy topics today. I did not mean to get so deep and so heavy so quickly, but you know, we did. It's just what it is. But I feel like your insight is I feel like it's very, very appreciated, you know what I mean? Like, that's like my whole goal with this, is to take like stories of people that, you know, you normally wouldn't hear. Like with Tiffany, it was, you know, a bigger Asian woman like living in Australia. For you, it's like a normal presenting queer person with like mental illnesses and what it's like living with that. And I want to kind of continue that kind of vibe. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming in. Just like with me. Perfect. All right. Perfect. Well, that's the final look. Let me get you a mirror so you can have a look. Have a live reaction. Here. That's what it looks like.
Ooh. Yes, I love it.
I
love the lip color in combination with the eyes as well.
Yeah, I was like a cool, like a purpley red would definitely look good with the kind of look. Yeah, because you're someone who's wanted to like do some more like fun.
Yeah.
Or like try like fun makeup more. We're trying to get out of this whole clean girl trend of makeup.
Because I'm good at it. I'm good at the clean girl look, but you know, I need to try things that I'm not just immediately good at as well.
Period.
So.
I mean, yeah. Is there anything you want to like, I don't know, say before we finish up?
I guess I just want to check my privilege, because I know that in some areas I do have privilege, and I know that passing as, you know, a straight person, you know, just a normal person, so to speak, a neurotypical person, that does have its advantages, and you know, a lot of the time it's advantages of safety, and it has its own struggles as well, but it's just different. It's not, you know, overarching what other people go through or anything like that, but just giving that sort of perspective a voice is good, I feel like. And I feel like, for me anyways, I get a lot of perspective from my studies, like gender studies specifically, just because, you know, you get a broader perspective, and then you get academic readings behind it to back up particular perspectives, and you hear from lots of different people. But at the end of the day, I just want to approach everything with like an open mind, and I just like listening to other people's stories, I guess.
Well, I guess that's why you're studying psych as well.
Yes.
That's going to be your future career. Well, amazing. Well, thank you for joining us. I enjoyed it. Like and hit that bell, or whatever it is that they say. Like and hit that bell, and if you want to see any more Libby, or have any recommendations on who I should interview next, or what topics I should cover next, just let me know. But yeah, thank you.